Hi guys, it is a spectacularly gorgeous day here in the end times in the former paradise of Usal Wilderness Beach, somewhere along the Mendocino-Humboldt County line on this gorgeous Tuesday morning. August 1st, 2017. Do you believe that we have made it to another month as a planet? And don't ask me how. But anyway, it being Tuesday morning is when I bring you my kind of hodgepodge, wacky conspiracy theory, mad scientist, techno-utopian, religious wacko roundup rants. See what's on the minds of all of these various folks. I wound up yesterday's economic meltdown roundup rant with this story, and so this will be my segue from yesterday's rant into this one about this conspiracy theory. This isn't a new conspiracy. This is just a rehashed conspiracy theory. Suggests that Outback Steakhouse is the center of a satanic cult. The internet has way too much time on its hands, and this is talking about how like a goddamn cockroach, this absolutely hilarious theory that people literally are buying into this, that Outback Steakhouse it is somehow placing their restaurants around different cities around the country, that if you put them on Google Map and draw lines connecting them, that they resemble satanic pentangles. Drawing lines between the locations revealed a pentagram. There you go. What would appear to some as a well-spaced series of locations looked to our erstwhile Twitter users like a signal from a satanic cult. Now, of course, as I mentioned in the closing remarks of my economic meltdown roundup rant yesterday, you better goddamn believe that Outback Steakhouse, like every other steakhouse and every other hamburger joint on the planet, is ground zero for a satanic cult. And that is the cult of beef-eating, clueless morons on this planet. A cult that grows and grows and grows, probably by millions of people on the planet every year. Okay, so that was a wacky conspiracy theory, but anybody who thinks this story is a wacky conspiracy theory, several versions of this story on the mainstream media. Anybody who thinks this story about Roomba vacuum cleaners, got one thing to tell you.
Warning, bullshit alert.
Okay, as I say, many versions of this story. Roombas have been mapping your homes for years, and that data is about to be sold to the highest bidder. Once just a curious novelty for people who absolutely despise traditional vacuum cleaners, Roomba's robotic vacuums are now offered in several models. And one of its most interesting and controversial money-making strategies hasn't even been implemented yet, as this new report reveals that one of Roomba's plays for the future involves using its fancy little cleaner bots as Trojan horses, which, while in the process of tidying up your smart home, will map your home's layout and then send that information to the company to be sold to the highest bidder. There you go. If that sounds more than a little creepy, that's because, well, it is. But companies pushing into the smart home market would most certainly be willing to pony up the dough for that data. Products like smart speakers, security monitors, high-tech thermostats, and many other gadgets could potentially benefit from knowledge of your home's layout. Not to mention high-tech burglars taking full advantage of your vacuum cleaner. Just sending out the layout of your house. Smart homes. Yeah, right. Okay, this one, which order do I want to do this? Okay, we're going to start out with this one, mini versions on the mainstream media getting a a laugh about this clueless fucking moron congressman asking a NASA scientist whether these internet reports of civilizations on Mars are true or not. Being an elected official means that you should probably have a working knowledge of whatever topic it is you're planning to publicly address at any given time. But many government talking heads fall far short of that requirement on a regular basis. And just the latest example is Representative Dana Rohrabacher of California at a congressional meeting with some of NASA's top scientists to discuss the prospects of further exploration of planets in our solar system. Rohrabacher asked a question that would seemingly have been more fitting in the wake of the 1938 radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds. After praising the work that NASA has been doing about, I wish you could see in the camera, can you see the bull elk approaching here, approaching the truck during this rant? We have a bull elk coming down to listen to this rant. Anyway, where was I? After praising the work NASA has been doing, as well as addressing plans for a new rover on Mars by 2020, the Republican congressman had one last thing he wanted to ask. Quote, is it possible that there was a civilization on Mars thousands of years ago? It's unclear whether he was talking about a human civilization on Mars or a Martian civilization. This was NASA scientist Kenneth Farley. There's no evidence that I am aware of, Farley said, undoubtedly assuming that would be the end of that particular line of questioning, but Rohrabacher still was not quite satisfied. Would you rule that out? The congressman pressed. Farley concluded, I would say that is extremely unlikely. There you go. But apparently, Rohrabacher is not alone, and some of these people who have actually been to outer space might not agree with the NASA scientist that it is extremely unlikely. We now have 2 bull elk approaching the truck. Sancho Panza, it's a good thing Sancho Panza is in the truck. I really don't need Sancho Panza being trampled by bull elks. Anyway, how these astronauts had life-changing experiences with aliens. The pertinent question still remains, do aliens exist? And to help answer the question, several NASA astronauts do believe extraterrestrials exist and have been in touch with humanity for a long period. Let's see. So they go through. I don't think they interview these people freshly for this article. They just have looked through and gathered some quotes by astronauts, such as, and I've mentioned many of these guys, Buzz Aldrin, Edgar Mitchell, Gordon Cooper, and here's Katie Coleman and this whack job Brian O'Leary. All have claimed to have seen UFOs. Aldrin, one of the first people to walk on the moon, was talking about some UFO flying right alongside the thing. Now, this is unconfirmed about whether Neil Armstrong, the first man to step foot on the moon, there's this claim out there which I do not believe. It completely unsubstantiated, that Neil Armstrong believed aliens have a base on the moon, and they apparently warned Armstrong and others to, quote, get off and stay off the moon. There you go. But Aldrin is on record claiming that he's actually seen a UFO, although he's very careful to say it's not 100% proven that it came from outer space. Then from Aldrin to Edgar Dean Mitchell, the 6th person to walk on the moon, said his journey spiritually transformed his life in such a way that he has since devoted much of his time exploring things such as the existence of extraterrestrial beings. Quote from Edgar Mitchell, aliens have been observing us and have been here for some time. Mitchell once even claimed that peace-loving aliens had visited Earth to save humanity from nuclear war, and he indicated the Vatican knew about the existence of extraterrestrials. This goes on and on with Edgar Mitchell. And I say I've had other rants in the past, and this is one reason that I'm on the fence about space aliens. Then they look at claims made by Gordon Cooper, and YouTube is full of, you can just go on, and Gordon Cooper, again, one of the reasons why I'm on the fence. Cooper, the last American to fly in space alone, has said he spotted UFOs flying over Germany years before he even went into space. And then he talked about when he was up in space in 1963, reporting a real and solid UFO following him. Cooper has revealed how he felt he was living with a secret which was imposed on all specialists in aeronautics. Quote, this is Gordon Cooper, quote, I can now reveal that every day in the USA, our radar instruments capture objects of form and composition unknown to us. And there are thousands of witness reports and a quantity of documents to prove this, but nobody wants to make them public because authority is afraid that people may think of God knows what kind of horrible invaders. So the password still is, we have to avoid panic by all means. And then they wind up with this whack job, Brian O'Leary, who I used to have some respect for. This guy, Brian O'Leary, I think he died in Ecuador, and there's a huge conspiracy theory that astronaut Brian O'Leary was tracked down in Ecuador and killed by the New World Order for what he was going to expose about space aliens and free energy. This elk is getting closer. Can you see the... I don't even know if this camera's picking up this elk. This is Brian O'Leary on record before he was offed by the New World Order. Quote, there is abundant evidence that we are being contacted. Civilizations, meaning alien civilizations, have been monitoring us for a very long time. There you go. Their appearance is bizarre from any type of traditional materialistic Western point of view. This elk is making me hungry. I'm thinking about some elk burgers for breakfast. Let's see. Okay, we're going to switch gears here. I was just ranting one of these recent roundups how more and more scientists are claiming that Native Americans have been here for a hell of a lot longer than we ever thought. And wow, no shit, Sherlock, this new research showing Aborigines in Australia longer than previously thought. Do you think so? Aboriginal people have been in Australia for at least 65,000 years, longer than previously thought, roaming the area alongside giant megafauna, scientists said in a finding that sheds fresh light on when modern humans left Africa. I love this. Australian Aborigines are believed to be custodians of the oldest continuous culture on the planet. But when they first arrived has been a contested issue. Some people are claiming they've been there more than 80,000 years. Let's see. Of course, being an eco-Nazi, a major proponent of the overkill hypothesis, where does it talk about this? Anyway, God damn it, I'm trying to go through. Okay, here we go. The new research indicates that humans arrived on the continent before the extinction of Australian megafauna, such as giant kangaroos, wombats, and lizards. And this is just one more example of humans, in this case, going back at least 65,000 years, showing up on a new continent that never had humans, and just promptly getting around to killing all the megafauna. Watching this 500-pound elk in front of the truck, which is probably some little bitty dot somewhere in here. I'm amazed that elk survived the Native Americans here. This is one more example of the overkill hypothesis, that wherever these giant megafauna used to roam, as soon as humans get there, goodbye megafauna. All of this shit about some goddamn comet or whatever 12,000 years ago explaining what happened in the U.S. Well, there wasn't a goddamn comet hitting Australia 65,000 years ago. The comet that hit Australia were the Aborigines. Okay, we're going to go from megafaunal extinction to human extinction, talking about, I'm not going to waste much of my breath on this hilarious story from the Techno-Utopians, the bounty that heads off famine. With more than 20 million people at risk of famine, what is being called the single worst humanitarian crisis since World War II. This newspaper called The Monitor looks at some of the successes we have had in avoiding famine.
Bullshit detected. Take precautions.
Yes. And then the article probes what it means to build resilience among people in dealing with a disaster. I've been talking a lot about this book by Humpty Dumpty Tribe member Dean Walker, talking about resilience. Resilience implies a sustainable capacity of strength and intelligence to face a hazard and to recover. And anyway, I'm not going to say, I just love this, talking about the idea of community-led development has now blossomed worldwide. The change can be seen in the sustainable development goals adopted by the United Nations in 2015, in which the UN set a goal to end persistent hunger on this planet by 2030.
Bullshit level DEFCON 5.
But we're going to wind up this whack job roundup here on the pages of the Los Angeles Times, just presenting this straightforward. The title, "In theory, if the human race becomes extinct, will the concept of God exist elsewhere in the universe?" And then they start out, talking about Stephen Hawking, talking about how humans have less than 100 years on this planet before we go extinct, and sounding a lot like Pope Francis. There you go. So anyway, the LA Times went around, I guess, LA, interviewing various theologians on human extinction. And the question they asked, do you believe the human race faces an existential threat? If humans fail to develop space travel, suffer a catastrophe, and therefore become extinct, will the concept of God exist elsewhere in the physical universe? And this was Pastor John Barta from Burbank, California. Not sure which church. And I'm just going to give his answer to the question, and you can figure out what the other answer sounded like. Okay. Take it away, Pastor John. God has already addressed this very important question in Scripture. The human race does not face an existential threat, whether from asteroids, ecological disaster, or any other source.
Oh, come on now, that ain't even bullshit. That's horseshit.
In fact, the Bible tells us exactly what will happen. Jesus Christ will return to raise the bodies of believers of all generations, and then transform or rapture believers living on earth at that time, leaving those who reject him. I believe, I recall several rants that the rapture is never mentioned in the Bible. Okay, getting back to Pastor John. After this, the Antichrist will be revealed. Well, I think we just need to go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to find the revelation of the Antichrist. Anyway, the Antichrist will be revealed, rule over humanity for a limited time, at least until he's impeached or assassinated, and ultimately the Antichrist will be conquered by Jesus.
That was bullshit.
Jesus will then rule on earth over humanity for 1,000 years, after which the heavens and earth will be consumed with fire. Well, there you go. I'm with that. The earth being consumed with fire. I don't think we have to wait 1,000 years. Anyway, those people who rejected God will be judged and cast eternally into the lake of fire. That is exactly what is unfolding on the planet as the human race heading into a burning lake of fire. God will create new heavens and a new earth, and those who know him will dwell with him there forever.
Bullshit detected. Take precaution.
Mankind will never be wiped out.
Bullshit level. DEFCON 5.
So, am I concerned about our planet's future? Not at all. Earth, and mankind as well, is under such special guidance by God that it is difficult not to be positive.
Oh, come on now. That ain't even bullshit. That's horseshit.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this week's wacky conspiracy, bad scientist, religious nutcase roundup and go see if I can bag me an elk for lunch here in the end times and do a little megafaunal extinction, because I'm hungry and I gotta eat. Bye, guys.